This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Making top story today, keep an eye on Exxon's accelerated development. Former finance minister stresses need for robust oversight of production costs. Paying Exxon's taxes cost Guyana more than the royalty it collects. Collected $21.2 million in first year and pays $27.5 million to GRA for oil companies. In the $300 million Vreeden Hoop shore-based facility, area cleared for dredging crosses traditional fishing grounds. Ineligible police ranks promoted. A former assistant commissioner cites lack of due diligence. Man charged with murder of Monrepo granny, and the government raises billions from private interests to finance biggest budget ever and represents additional debt to be paid in future. Stay tuned to stay informed.
Go loud or go home. Never miss out on your favorite local radio segments, local and international podcasts, and DJ mixes.
That's right.
With the Go Loud app. Discover podcasts like Common Sense, Red Table Talk, The Breakfast Club, and the best mixes from DJs worldwide, and much more. Stream all of your favorite local radio stations in one app. Go loud on what matters to you. Download the Go Loud app in the App or Play Store today and start listening.
And now for the news in detail. Record high oil prices have seen operators chasing a speeding bullet to capitalize on returns. But the current situation could leave the country's already vulnerable oil industry even more exposed. Former Finance Minister Winston Jordan has opined. Jordan is concerned that the higher prices have encouraged oil companies to increase production while earning more money from the sale of the resource. The problem, however, is that Guyana is not on par with the accelerated pace because it does not have the in-house expertise to monitor the sector and ensure the bills coming in from the operators are legitimate. ExxonMobil and its partners have expressed satisfaction in its local investment ahead of climbing inflation rates that are at this point a major hindrance to developing and thus increasing resource production to balance out oil prices. This means that Exxon and its partners' returns from their investment in the Liza 1 and 2 wells are significantly higher than the sums of the companies would have pumped into the project. To further capitalize on the high prices, the companies are drilling more and are expected to bring on stream new FPSO vessels every year, possibly until the 11 billion barrel line of sight oil is covered by the estimated 10 FPSOs. Guyana, under the production sharing agreement with ExxonMobil Guyana, agreed to pay, among other things, the income taxes to be paid by the oil companies, and as such, in the first full year of production, accumulated payments to the Guyana Revenue Authority on behalf of those companies amounted to $5.7 billion, or about $27.5 million. The country in 2020 collected some $184.9 million in profit and $21.2 million in royalty for a total of $206 million. As such, it would mean that the government agreed to pay to GRA more money than it received in royalty payments for that year, to be turned over to the tax authority, representing payments made on behalf of the oil companies. In other news, University of British Columbia professor Dr. Janet Bulkin has complained that the area cleared for the dredging that will be done at Plantation Best West Bank Demerara for the $300 million Vreeden Hoop shore-based facility crosses traditional fishing grounds. As such, Dr. Bulkin called on the Environmental Protection Agency to give an explanation as to why there is no environmental impact assessment for the dredging that will be done at Plantation Best for the facility. On June 21st last, the sod was turned for the Vredenhoop Shore Base, Inc., which will sit on 400 hectares of coastal land. We had reported that the construction of the $300 million facility is for ExxonMobil to provide shore-based services to its upcoming $10 billion Yellowtail development offshore Guyana. It was reported that several vessels are already in Guyana's waters to commence the first phase of the project, with a December 2023 deadline for completion. And now let's tell you the recent promotion of officers of the Guyana Police Force is being called into question for a lack of proper due diligence, which has led to a number of persons who are under discipline being elevated. Retired Assistant Commissioner of Police, Clinton Conway, criticized the list of officers who were approved for promotions, calling it bloated and defective. The former officer, who was also an immediate past member of the Police Service Commission, the body responsible for sanctioning promotions within the GPF, noted the speed at which the list of some 250 members of the GPF was approved. Conway said the alacrity with which the promotions were handled is a testament that no proper vetting of the names on the list was done by the current PSC. Conway noted specifically that the recommended list was produced on Friday last, and by Saturday, the list was approved. In other news, the 26-year-old man who reportedly confessed to brutally stabbing to death Monrepo resident 86-year-old Agnes Dillon last week Wednesday was on Thursday remanded to prison. Nimon Prasad, a laborer and construction worker called Boyi, was on Thursday charged with Dillon's murder at the Georgetown Magistrates Courts. The charge was read to Prasad by Magistrate Rochelle Liverpool. He was not required to plead to the indictable charge, which alleged that he had stabbed Dillon to death sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday last at her rented Monrepo, East Coast Demerara home. The court heard that he had confessed to investigators that he killed Dillon under the influence of alcohol because she had owed him money for a weeding job. And moving on. The government of Guyana this year presented its biggest budget ever, set initially at $553 billion, but will increase, as already signaled by President Ali when he referenced a resort to supplementary spending by the state. The 2022 estimates is the first year in which the country's budget is being financed in part by monies accrued from the country's oil earnings. According to the Bank of Guyana, in order to finance this budget, however, the government, in addition to loans and grants, raised in excess of $50 billion from the sale of treasury bills. The state of affairs is documented in the central bank's first quarterly report for the year, which noted that while the country's total debt stock owed externally and domestically increased to more than $3 billion, the domestic debt increased mainly on account of a growth in the stock of treasury bills at the end of the review period. The time is now 12 hours 9 in Guyana. We'll take a short break and return with your news.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back with your news at noon. While there have been initial engagements between the Office of the Attorney General and International Republican Institute on matters related to Guyana's much-anticipated electoral reform, those discussions have not progressed further within the past year. This is according to Resident Program Director of the IRI, Dorota Rezai. Rezai responded to a Kaieteur News email on the status of the IRI's work with electoral reform, particularly with the AG's office. This comes even as the government of Guyana forges ahead with efforts towards reviewing the Representation of the People Act to iron out ambiguous provisions and include penalties for persons attempting to carry out electoral fraud. Meanwhile, from some 604 COVID-19 tests conducted, the Ministry of Health on Thursday reported that it recorded 86 new cases across the country within the last 24 hours. The new infections, which now bring the total number of confirmed cases to 67,929, were detected in Region 4, which recorded 50 cases. Region 1, which recorded 9 cases, Region 10, which recorded 7 cases, Region 2, which recorded 6 cases, Region 3, 4, Region 7 and 9, which recorded 3 each, and Regions 5 and 6, which recorded 2 each. And just before we wrap things up, let's tell you that Kaieteur News would like to offer a clarification to a caption for one of their featured articles in Thursday's edition, Cost of Living to Double by Year End, Central Bank Warns. The headline should have conveyed that it is the rate of the cost of living that will double by year end. Kaieteur News apologizes for the misrepresentation. With the time now moving on to 12 hours 12, we wrap things up as usual with the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News. Rising cost of living. Everyone is crying out and complaining about the rising cost of living. Everything is being sold at higher prices these days, a global trend which economists have pinned to the Russia-Ukraine war and the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in Guyana, citizens are catching their tail to get by, and our government, instead of rolling out a comprehensive program to cushion the effects of the inflation, has resorted to doling out in a very haphazard manner cash grants to selected groups of people. And if the recent flurry of grants was not enough, we reported yesterday President Irfan Ali signaling that the government will be going back to Parliament for more funds to continue their cash giveaway scheme. In his own words, Ali said, "I want people to understand. I want to work with the people. I will come to every community. I will come to every door. I want to work with the people. I have already asked the Minister of Finance to immediately work on a supplementary provision." End of quote. We would like to tell the President that monies and programs and promises can continue to be doled out in this haphazard, erratic and slapdash fashion, and all that is achieved is a staying of the tide until the next set of circumstances bring a deluge of the unwanted, which covers from the unmentioned to the uncomfortable to the undesired to eye and ear. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your